Imagine planning a mother-son road trip to reconnect after years of distance, only to vanish completely during one of California's deadliest wildfires. 15 years later, forest survey crews using advanced LiDAR mapping discover your RV buried under 15 years of regrowth, hidden 400 yards off an abandoned fire road. Inside, two bodies, perfectly preserved by the dry heat. But here's what made investigators' blood run cold. The fire damage stopped at the RV's exterior. Inside, everything was intact: water bottles, food wrappers, scattered belongings, and a journal. The journal's final entry, written in a teenager's handwriting 12 days after the fire passed, read, "Mom stopped moving today. The man who locked us in here said the fire would hide what he did. He was right. No one's coming." This is the story of Jennifer Martinez and her 15-year-old son Christopher, and how a summer road trip meant to heal old wounds became a tomb that wouldn't be discovered until the boy who wrote those words would have been 30 years old. In the summer of 2009, Jennifer Martinez was 41 years old and trying to rebuild a relationship with her teenage son. After a difficult divorce 3 years earlier, Jennifer had thrown herself into her career as a pharmaceutical sales representative, traveling constantly, working long hours, providing financially but not emotionally present. Her son, Christopher, 15, had grown distant, spending more time with friends, getting into minor trouble at school, barely speaking to her beyond one-word answers. Jennifer's therapist had suggested they needed dedicated time together, away from routines and distractions. "Create a shared experience," the therapist had said, "something that's just yours." So, Jennifer proposed a road trip. Just the two of them. 2 weeks in their RV, driving up the California coast, camping in state parks, visiting redwood forests, whale watching in Mendocino, hiking in Yosemite. No schedules, no work calls, no distractions. Quality time. Christopher had been skeptical at first. 2 weeks in an RV with my mom," he'd said to his best friend Marcus. "Sounds like torture." But Marcus had been encouraging. "Dude, your mom's trying. That's cool. Plus, road trip beats summer school." Christopher had failed algebra and was facing remedial classes. Jennifer offered a deal. Come on the trip, and she'd hire a tutor for the fall instead of making him do summer school. He agreed. They'd purchased a used 1998 Fleetwood Jamboree RV, 26 feet long, with a small kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping area that converted from the dinette. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. Jennifer had been excited, even though she'd never driven anything larger than her Honda sedan. She'd practiced in parking lots, gotten comfortable with the size, and planned their route meticulously. August 14, 2009 at 7:00 a.m., they pulled out of their driveway in San Jose. Jennifer's ex-husband, Robert, had come to see Christopher off. There was a photograph taken that morning, Jennifer and Christopher standing in front of the RV, both smiling somewhat awkwardly. Christopher making a peace sign, Jennifer's arm around his shoulders. It was the last photo ever taken of them. The first 3 days of the trip went better than expected. They'd driven up Highway 1, stopped at beach towns, eaten at roadside diners. Christopher had opened up a little, talking about school, his friends, admitting he was scared about high school. Jennifer had listened without judging, without trying to fix everything immediately. They'd watched the sunset at Pfeiffer Beach. They'd walked through the Avenue of the Giants in Humboldt-Redwood State Park. On August 17th, they'd turned inland, heading toward Yosemite National Park. That evening, they'd parked at a campground near Mariposa. Christopher had actually said, "This is pretty cool, Mom. I'm glad we did this." Jennifer had hugged him, feeling like maybe they were finding their way back to each other. August 18th, they'd visited Yosemite, Half Dome, El Capitan, the valley overlooks. They'd hiked to Vernal Falls. Christopher had taken dozens of photos on his digital camera. Jennifer had bought him a national park sweatshirt. They'd eaten dinner at a picnic table, playing cards as the sun set. Their plan for August 19th was to drive to Sequoia National Park, then begin the loop back toward the coast. They'd left Yosemite around 9 a.m., heading south on Highway 41. At 10:47 a.m., they stopped at a Shell gas station in Oakhurst. Security footage would later show Jennifer filling the RV's tank while Christopher went inside to buy snacks. The clerk remembered him. Nice kid, polite, bought Doritos and Red Bull. They'd pulled out at 11:02 a.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of Jennifer and Christopher Martinez. At 1:34 p.m. that same day, a lightning strike in the Sierra National Forest, about 40 miles northeast of their route, ignited dry brush. The 2009 Sierra Lightning Complex fire, as it would later be called, had begun. Within 2 hours, aided by single-digit humidity and erratic winds, the fire had consumed 3,000 acres. By evening, it had jumped Highway 41 and was racing toward the communities of Bass Lake and Oakhurst. Evacuation orders went out. Thousands of residents and tourists fled. Jennifer and Christopher were somewhere in that chaos, but where exactly, no one knew. When they didn't arrive at their planned campsite in Sequoia that evening, no one was immediately alarmed. Cell phone service in the mountains was spotty. Maybe they'd changed their plans. Maybe they'd decided to stay another day in Yosemite. But when Jennifer didn't show up for work on Monday, August 24th, and wasn't answering her phone, her boss called Robert. He tried Christopher's cell. No answer. He called Jennifer's mother, her sister, her friends. No one had heard from them. On August 25, 2009, Robert Martinez filed a missing person report with the California Highway Patrol. The timing of Jennifer and Christopher's disappearance couldn't have been worse. The Sierra Lightning Complex fire was still burning, having consumed over 47,000 acres. Multiple other fires were burning simultaneously across California. Resources were stretched thin. The air quality was hazardous. Search and rescue operations in the fire zone were impossible while the flames were still active. But their RV should have been easy to find. It was a 26-foot vehicle, white with blue stripes, license plate clearly registered. The California Highway Patrol put out an APB. Every law enforcement agency in the region was notified. The first theory was evacuation confusion. Perhaps Jennifer and Christopher had been caught in the evacuation chaos, diverted to a shelter, unable to charge their phones or contact anyone. CHP checked every evacuation center from Fresno to Sacramento. The Red Cross reviewed their shelter lists. No Jennifer Martinez. No Christopher Martinez. The second theory was accident-related. Perhaps they'd been involved in a crash during the evacuation, driven off a mountain road in the smoke and chaos, gone over an embankment, the RV hidden in a ravine or canyon. Once the fire was contained enough to allow access, search teams began systematic sweeps of Highway 41 and surrounding roads. They found several vehicles that had been abandoned during the evacuation. They found 2 bodies, elderly residents who died of smoke inhalation in their car. But they didn't find the Martinez RV. Helicopters with thermal imaging flew the search area. If the RV had been in the burn zone, even if it had been incinerated, the metal frame would show up on infrared. Nothing. The third theory, the one that Robert Martinez couldn't accept, but that investigators had to consider, was that Jennifer and Christopher had died in the fire itself. Perhaps they'd pulled over somewhere remote, tried to wait out the fire, and been overtaken by flames. The fire had been so intense in some areas, temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, that vehicles had been reduced to melted metal and ash. Bodies had been completely cremated. Over 85 homes had been destroyed. Thousands of acres of forest were reduced to moonscape. The fire had killed 2 firefighters and 3 civilians. It wasn't impossible that Jennifer and Christopher were among the casualties. Their remains simply not identifiable or not yet found. But there were problems with this theory. The fire's path was well documented. Every structure destroyed had been cataloged. Every vehicle found in the burn zone had been accounted for. None of them were the Martinez RV. "It's like they drove off the face of the earth," said Detective Sarah Chen of the Madera County Sheriff's Office, who'd been assigned the case. The fourth theory was the darkest: abduction. Perhaps someone had encountered them on the road, forced them to pull over, taken them somewhere. Perhaps they'd been carjacked. Perhaps someone had seen a woman and teenage boy alone in an RV and seen opportunity. Investigators reviewed every sex offender in the region. They looked at unsolved missing person cases. They checked reports of suspicious activity. They interviewed everyone who'd been in the area: tourists, residents, firefighters, evacuees. One witness report stood out. A woman who'd been evacuating on August 19th said she'd seen an RV matching the Martinez vehicle's description on a dirt Forest Service road off Highway 41 around 2 p.m. "I thought it was weird," she said, "because the fire was getting close and they were heading deeper into the forest, not away from it. I almost stopped to warn them, but I had my kids in the car and needed to get out." This was the last reported sighting. Investigators searched that Forest Service road, Road 6S10, a rough dirt track used mainly by hunters and off-roaders. The road led deep into Sierra National Forest, eventually dead-ending at an old logging site. The road had been heavily burned. Any tire tracks would have been obliterated, but search teams walked every mile of it. They found nothing. By October 2009, the active search was scaled down. The fire was fully contained. The burn area was accessible. But after 6 weeks of intensive searching, there was no sign of Jennifer and Christopher Martinez or their RV. The case was classified as missing persons, circumstances unknown. It remained open, but without new leads, there was nowhere else to look. Robert Martinez became consumed by the search. He took a leave of absence from his job as an engineer. He spent every weekend driving forest roads, hiking into remote areas, posting flyers. He hired 2 private investigators over the years. He maintained a website documenting the case, sharing theories, pleading for information. Jennifer's mother, Elena, held monthly vigils in San Jose. She kept Christopher's bedroom exactly as he'd left it: his posters on the walls, his algebra textbook on the desk, his skateboard by the door. Years passed. The 2009 fire became one tragedy among many in California's long history of wildfires. Bigger fires came: the Camp Fire in 2018, the Dixie Fire in 2021. The Sierra Lightning Complex fire faded from memory. But Jennifer and Christopher's family never stopped looking. Their case remained one of California's most baffling missing person mysteries. A mother and son who'd simply vanished on a road trip, leaving no trace. 15 years would pass before the forest gave up its secret. By 2024, the Sierra National Forest had largely recovered from the 2009 fire. Where there had once been blackened stumps and ash, there was now vigorous regrowth: manzanita, young pines, oak saplings. Nature had reclaimed the burn zone. The U.S. Forest Service was conducting a comprehensive mapping project using LiDAR technology, laser imaging that could penetrate forest canopy and create detailed 3D maps of terrain and any structures beneath. The goal was to identify hazardous trees, unstable slopes, and forgotten structures that might pose fire risks. On July 23, 2024, a LiDAR technician named Marcus Webb was reviewing survey data from a grid section near the old Road 6S10 area when something unusual caught his attention. About 400 yards off the road, in dense regrowth forest, there was a large rectangular object. The shape was too regular to be natural: approximately 26 feet long, 8 feet wide, partially sunken into the ground. "Could be an old trailer or storage container," Marcus told his supervisor. "But it's not on any of our structure maps. Want me to check it out?" On July 25th, Marcus and a Forest Service ranger named Patricia Orozco hiked in to investigate. The terrain was difficult: no trail, dense brush, steep slope. But after 40 minutes of bushwhacking, they found it. Partially buried, covered in 15 years of fallen leaves and branches, camouflaged by growing vegetation, was an RV. The exterior was fire damaged. Paint bubbled and blackened, plastic fixtures melted, windows cracked from heat. But it was structurally intact. "Jesus," Patricia said. "How long has this been here?" Marcus was already photographing it. The license plate, though blackened, was readable: 5KU391. He ran it through the Forest Service database on his phone. Registered to Jennifer Martinez, San Jose, California. Reported missing August 25th, 2009. "Call it in," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Right now." Within 2 hours, Madera County Sheriff's deputies had arrived, followed by detectives, forensic teams, and crime scene investigators. Detective Sarah Chen, now a captain but still haunted by the Martinez case, made the drive from Madera as soon as she heard. The RV was photographed extensively before anyone entered. The exterior showed severe fire damage, the left side particularly scorched, indicating the fire had approached from that direction. But the damage was superficial. The structure was intact. The door was closed, but unlocked. Captain Chen was the first to enter, wearing protective gear and a respirator. The interior was dim, the windows covered by 15 years of grime and fire residue. She turned on her flashlight. The scene was like a time capsule from 2009. The small kitchen area had dishes in the sink. A map was spread on the dinette table, marked with their planned route. Christopher's backpack sat on one of the bench seats. An iPod, the old kind with the click wheel, lay on the counter. And in the rear sleeping area, 2 bodies. They were remarkably preserved, mummified by the dry heat and low humidity that followed the fire. The bodies were lying on the bed, mother and son side by side. Jennifer's arm was around Christopher, protective even in death. Captain Chen had seen many bodies in her career, but this image would stay with her forever. The medical examiner, Dr. Raymond Cho, arrived 2 hours later. His preliminary assessment, delivered outside the RV to the assembled investigators, was shocking. Based on the state of the remains and the environment, these individuals have been deceased for approximately 15 years. Cause of death appears to be dehydration and starvation. There's no evidence of fire-related trauma, no smoke inhalation, no burns. They died after the fire passed. "How is that possible?" an investigator asked. "The fire was in mid-August. They disappeared August 19th. How long could they survive? In this heat without water? Perhaps 2 weeks, maybe slightly longer if they had some water initially." The forensic team processed the scene meticulously. What they found painted a horrifying picture. Empty water bottles scattered throughout the RV, at least a dozen. Empty food packages, granola bars, crackers, canned goods that had been opened. The bathroom bucket had been used as a toilet, scratches on the inside of the door as if someone had tried to pry it open. The door handle on the inside was broken. Deliberately, it appeared. Most disturbing, carved into the wooden cabinet above the dinette table in shaky letters, were the words, "Locked in, can't get out, help us." And there, tucked under Christopher's body, was a small spiral notebook, his journal. The journal was photographed and carefully removed. It contained 12 entries dated from August 19, 2009 to August 31, 2009. The final entry was barely legible, the handwriting shaky. August 31st, 2009, day 12. "Mom stopped moving today. She stopped breathing last night, but I didn't want to believe it. I kept trying to wake her up. I don't have any water left. I tried to break the door again, but I'm too weak. The man who locked us in here said the fire would hide what he did. He was right. No one's coming. I don't think I'll make it another day. If someone finds this, tell my dad I'm sorry I failed algebra. Tell him I love him. Tell him Mom tried really hard to save us. She gave me her water the last 3 days." Christopher Martinez, age 15. The crime scene was expanded. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. This was a homicide. Reading Christopher's full journal was devastating. The entries told a story that investigators would spend weeks verifying and documenting. August 19th, 2009, day 1. "We were driving to Sequoia when we saw the smoke. Mom turned on the radio and they said fires were breaking out. We tried to keep going, but the highway was getting closed. We saw a Forest Service road and a man was standing there waving us down. He said the main road was cut off by fire and we should follow him to a safe route out. Mom believed him. We followed his truck." August 20th, 2009, day 2. He led us to this clearing deep in the forest, and then pulled a gun. Said we saw his place, and he can't let us leave. There's a bunker here, hidden. He said if we try to leave, he'll shoot us. He locked us in the RV last night. Took the keys. Mom tried to reason with him, but he won't listen. The fire is getting closer. We can see the smoke. August 21st, 2009, Day 3. The fire came through last night. We could hear it, feel the heat. We thought we were going to burn, but the fire went around us mostly. Just burned the trees. The man came this morning. Said the fire was perfect cover. Said everyone will think we died in it. Said no one will ever look here. Then he locked the door from outside somehow and left. The subsequent entries detailed their slow deterioration, rationing water, trying to escape, Christopher attempting to break the door while Jennifer tried to preserve their strength. The desperation was palpable in the increasingly frantic handwriting. August 25th, then 2009, Day 7. Mom is getting weak. We're almost out of water. I tried breaking the window, but it's too small to crawl through, and the man might hear us. We scream sometimes, but there's no one out here. Just burned forest. August 28th, 2009, Day 10. No water left. Mom gave me the last bottle yesterday. She says to stay strong. She says Dad will find us. I don't think he will. I don't think anyone will. Investigators launched a massive effort to identify the perpetrator. Christopher's journal mentioned the man multiple times, but never his name. However, there were details. He drove an old green truck. He had a bunker on the property. He'd said the RV was too close to his place. He had a beard and spoke with a kind of a country accent. He told them he was a caretaker for the forest. The crime scene team searched the area around the RV. About 200 yards away, they found what they were looking for, the remains of an underground bunker. It was sophisticated, reinforced concrete walls, ventilation system, supplies stored in waterproof containers. This was someone's serious survival retreat. Property records for that area of Sierra National Forest showed it was federal land. No one should have been building anything there. But cross-referencing Forest Service employment records for 2009, one name emerged. Dale Eugene Pritchard, 58 in 2009, worked as a fire lookout and forest caretaker. Background check on Pritchard. Born 1951 in rural Oregon, military service 1970-1974, dishonorable discharge for insubordination. Worked various manual labor jobs, employed by Forest Service 2004-2010 as seasonal lookout. Multiple complaints from hikers about aggressive confrontations. Left Forest Service employment in 2010, cited health reasons. Current location, unknown. Social Security records showed no activity after 2015. The investigation widened. Detectives discovered that Pritchard had owned a small property about 12 miles from the bunker site, legally purchased land where he'd lived in a trailer. The property had been foreclosed on in 2013 for unpaid taxes and sold at auction. The new owners had demolished the trailer, but reported finding weird stuff buried. They'd called local sheriff about survivalist garbage they'd dug up. That report from 2014 had been filed and forgotten. Detectives obtained a warrant to excavate the property. What they found was damning: a green 1987 Chevrolet truck buried in a shallow pit, matching Christopher's description. In the truck's glove box, a key ring with keys that fit the Martinez RV, buried waterproof containers with journals and notes in Pritchard's handwriting. The journals were chilling. Pritchard had documented his philosophy of territorial protection and his contempt for tourists who invaded forest land. He'd written extensively about his bunker, his supplies, his preparations for when society collapses. And there, in an entry from August 2009, August 19th, 2 intruders, woman and boy in RV, came too close to the bunker site, led them to clearing, secured them. Fire starting, perfect cover. We'll wait out fire, then decide what to do with them. August 21st, fire passed. Checked on intruders, locked them in RV. Can't release them now, they've seen too much. We'll let nature take its course. If anyone finds them, will look like they got trapped during evacuation. August 30th, checked clearing. No sounds from RV. Problem solved. Fire did what it needed to do. The manhunt for Dale Pritchard intensified, but he'd been off the grid for nearly a decade. His last known address was the foreclosed property. He'd drawn his last Social Security check in 2015 at a post office in Reno, Nevada. A break came from an unexpected source, a tip from a VA hospital in Portland, Oregon. A patient matching Pritchard's description had been treated there in 2023 for advanced lung cancer, likely from years of smoke exposure. He'd given a fake name, but the hospital had his fingerprints from the intake process. The fingerprints matched Dale Eugene Pritchard. The hospital had an address, a homeless shelter in Portland. When FBI agents arrived on August 15, 2024, they found Pritchard living in a shelter for veterans, using the name Eugene Dale. He was 73 years old, gaunt from cancer, tethered to an oxygen tank. When agents identified themselves and informed him he was under arrest for the murders of Jennifer and Christopher Martinez, Pritchard showed no surprise. "Wondered when you'd find them," he said. During interrogation over the next 2 days, Pritchard gave a full confession. He was dying anyway. The cancer was terminal, maybe 3 months left. He seemed almost relieved to tell the story. "They saw my bunker," he said. "I'd worked on that place for 5 years. Thousands of dollars in supplies. If they reported it, Forest Service would make me tear it down, maybe prosecute me for building on federal land. I couldn't allow that. So you let them die. I secured them until I could figure out what to do. Then the fire started. I realized if I just left them locked up and the fire came through, everyone would assume they died in the fire. No crime, just 2 more statistics. A mother and her 15-year-old son. I gave them water, gave them a chance. Not my fault they didn't last longer. You locked them in an RV in 100-degree heat with limited supplies. I gave them more of a chance than the fire would have." Psychiatric evaluation found Pritchard competent despite his illness. He was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and paranoid tendencies, but he understood his actions and their consequences. He simply didn't care. "I protected what was mine," he said repeatedly. "That bunker was my life's work." Dale Eugene Pritchard was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and multiple federal offenses related to building on public land. The trial of Dale Eugene Pritchard was both brief and devastating. It began in November 2024 in Fresno, California. Pritchard, visibly dying, appeared in court in a wheelchair, oxygen tank at his side. His attorney attempted to negotiate a plea deal. Pritchard would plead guilty in exchange for dying in a hospital rather than prison. The prosecution refused. The Martinez family wanted a full trial, wanted the truth presented publicly, wanted a jury to declare what everyone knew, that Dale Pritchard was a murderer. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution presented Christopher's journal read aloud in court by Robert Martinez, who broke down multiple times, Pritchard's own journals documenting his decision to let them die, forensic evidence showing the RV door had been deliberately disabled from outside, photos of the bodies, positioned as they died, mother protecting son, expert testimony about death by dehydration, describing their final days. The most powerful testimony came from Dr. Cho, the medical examiner, who'd studied the remains extensively. Based on tissue analysis and the position of the bodies, I can reconstruct their final days. Jennifer Martinez survived longer than her son. The journal indicates she gave him her water rations. This extended his life by perhaps 2 days. But it also meant she was conscious when he died. She would have held him as he passed. Then she would have been alone for perhaps 36 hours before she died. In that heat, in that situation, those final hours would have been agonizing. Robert Martinez testified about the 15 years of searching, the hope that never quite died, the agony of not knowing. "I drove that highway 100 times," he said. "I was probably within a mile of them dozens of times. They were right there, waiting to be found." And this man knew exactly where they were. Elena, Jennifer's mother, testified about Christopher. "He was supposed to start high school that fall," she said. "He'd just gotten his braces off. He wanted to try out for the basketball team. He was a child, and this man locked him in a metal box in the August heat and left him to die slowly." The defense had little to offer. Pritchard's attorney argued, diminished capacity due to paranoid personality disorder, but Pritchard's own journals showed clear, rational planning. He had understood exactly what he was doing and had calculated that the fire would provide cover. Pritchard himself declined to testify. When given the opportunity to make a statement, he simply said, "I did what I needed to do to protect my property. That's all I have to say." The jury deliberated for 90 minutes, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Maria Santos was unsparing. "Mr. Pritchard, you are a coward who murdered a mother and child to protect your illegal bunker. You listened to a 15-year-old boy scream for help and did nothing. You let them die of thirst while you had water. You let them die in fear while you felt safe. Jennifer and Christopher Martinez died one of the most horrible deaths imaginable, slowly, knowing no one was coming, trapped in a metal tomb in the August heat. And you went about your life as if nothing had happened. You deserved no mercy." The sentence: 2 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole, plus additional years for the federal charges. The judge noted that Pritchard's terminal illness meant he would likely die in custody within months, but that was not a reason for leniency. "You took everything from this family," Judge Santos said. "The least you can do is die in a prison cell rather than comfortable in a hospital." Dale Eugene Pritchard died on January 8, 2025, in the medical ward of Corcoran State Prison. He was 73 years old. He never expressed remorse. The Martinez family held a funeral service on September 15, 2024, 15 years and 1 month after Jennifer and Christopher had disappeared. Their bodies, finally released after the investigation concluded, were cremated. The ashes were scattered at Pfeiffer Beach, where they'd watched the sunset together on the 3rd day of their road trip. Robert Martinez established the Jennifer and Christopher Martinez Memorial Scholarship, providing funds for single-parent families to afford educational tutoring. "Christopher failed algebra," Robert said. "Jennifer wanted to help him. They were trying to fix that when they were taken. I want other kids to get the help Christopher should have gotten." The RV where they died was removed from the forest and destroyed. The Forest Service bulldozed the area, removing all traces of Pritchard's bunker and the clearing where the Martinez RV had been hidden for 15 years. A memorial marker was placed at the Shell station in Oakhurst where they'd last been seen alive. It bears both their names and reads, "Jennifer and Christopher Martinez, mother and son, lost August 19, 2009, found July 25, 2024. A road trip meant to heal became a journey into darkness. May they rest in the peace that was stolen from them." Christopher's best friend Marcus, now 30 years old with children of his own, visits the memorial every August. "I remember him asking if he should go on. That trip," Marcus said. "I told him to go, that it would be good. I've had to live with that for 15 years. But now, at least I know what happened. Now at least he's been found." The case prompted changes in Forest Service protocols. All permit-exempt structures on federal land are now regularly surveyed using LiDAR technology. Isolated fire lookout positions require regular check-ins and psychological evaluations. The Sierra National Forest has committed to annual sweeps of remote areas to check for unauthorized structures or signs of human activity. But the questions linger. How many other remote areas hide secrets like this? How many vehicles went missing in fires over the years that weren't actually consumed by flames? How many people vanished in evacuations who weren't victims of disaster, but of someone who used disaster as cover? The 2009 Sierra Lightning Complex fire burned 47,000 acres and killed 5 people. 2 firefighters and 3 civilians confirmed dead in the fire. For 15 years, Jennifer and Christopher Martinez were presumed to be among the victims. But they weren't killed by the fire. They survived it. They died days later, locked in darkness, because a man valued his bunker more than human life. Their story is a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger doesn't come from the flames themselves, but from those who see catastrophe as opportunity, who use chaos as camouflage, who calculate that in the confusion of disaster, one more missing person won't be questioned too closely. Dale Pritchard was right about one thing. The fire did hide what he did. For 15 years, it worked perfectly. Jennifer and Christopher Martinez were just 2 more names on the list of presumed wildfire casualties. Their disappearance was tragic but explainable. The forest had taken them like it had taken so many others. Except the forest hadn't taken them. A man had, a man who then walked free for 15 years, while a father searched desperately for his missing family, while a grandmother kept a bedroom shrine to a grandson who would never come home, while friends and colleagues mourned and wondered and never got answers. Technology finally provided those answers. LiDAR mapping, designed to prevent future fires, uncovered the crime scene that manual searches had missed. Without it, the Martinez RV might have stayed hidden for another 15 years, or 50, or forever, until the forest reclaimed it completely and their story was lost to time. The Shell station where they stopped for gas still stands. Travelers still pull in, fill up, buy snacks, continue their journeys. Most have no idea that 15 years ago, a mother and son stopped at those same pumps, bought Doritos and Red Bull, and drove off toward a death that had nothing to do with the wildfire that would later be blamed. Jennifer Martinez wanted to reconnect with her son. She wanted to heal the distance that divorce and work and teenage angst had created. She planned a road trip filled with beauty and adventure and quality time. She got 12 days in a metal tomb in 100-degree heat, watching her child die of dehydration, knowing no one was coming. Christopher Martinez wanted to avoid summer school. He wanted to see redwood forests and go to Yosemite. He wanted his mom to stop working so much and just be present. He got 12 days of slow death, writing in a journal that documented his mother's love and his own terror, leaving a final message for a father who wouldn't read it for 15 years. The road trip meant to bring them together became the tragedy that ended them both. And the fire that everyone blamed was just the excuse a murderer used to avoid consequences. Until the forest gave up its secret, until the buried were found, until justice, delayed 15 years, finally caught up to the man who thought he'd gotten away with murder.